Whenever you're ready.
Alright, so, hi, I'm Jesse, and I'd like to start out by saying a story from about 12 years ago. My family decided that it's about time we got a dog for the family, so we went down to one of our local shelters, and there they had a wide selection of dogs that would all run up to the front of their cage, eager to meet who was in front of the cage, all happy wagging their tails, wanting to be chosen. The dog I wound up taking at the end was a small Chihuahua that was added to my family. It's been 12 years since I've gotten that dog, and it's still a happy member of our family nowadays. And I'm hoping that this dog will last my family a few more years, because that's the basic life expectancy of a Chihuahua. It's been 12 years, so I'm guessing about 14 should be it. So, today I'd like to describe why it's more beneficial to get your dog from an animal shelter rather than getting one from a pet store. In my speech, I will address why dogs from animal shelters can adapt to your family a lot faster than dogs from pet stores, and also why the price would be better at an animal shelter, as well as the benefits that are given at that shelter. And finally, I would like to explain why it's easier to find a dog at a shelter than it is at a pet store. First off, I would like to address a misconception about a dog, which people have, believing that the dogs in shelters are mainly aggressive or have been abused by many owners. That misconception isn't necessarily true. Most dogs aren't there because of these reasons. In a study run by the National Council on Pet Population Study and Policy, they investigated 12 animal shelters, and they found the top 10 reasons that dogs wind up in these shelters is mainly because 7% were put there because when people were moving, they could no longer have the dog. 6% was there because landlords didn't allow the pets in the new location that the family moved to. 4% were there because too many animals were in the house and they had to give them up. 5% of the dogs there had to be put there because the expenses of the dogs had been too much for the owners because they didn't investigate how much a dog would cost them. Another 4% were due to personal problems that owners had on the pets of their own lives, so they couldn't take care of the dogs. 4% were due to inadequate facilities for the dogs, so they had to give them up to help them find a better home. 3% of puppies that are found in animal shelters are there because many of them weren't sold from the litter that they were born in. 4% were put there because of pet illness, because the owner couldn't take care of them any longer. And 3% were there only because of biting, which is a small number compared to all the other reasons. Because of this study, it shows that many of the dogs that were put there had come from families that probably had been loving them, but under circumstances can no longer take care of them. This would help mean that the dog was accustomed to having a family already in the past, meaning that if you adopted a dog for there, it could adjust to your family really easily and may already come trained, as opposed to a pet shelter, since a pet store, since dogs in pet stores can be mostly raised in captivity and then sold to owners with minimal human activity in between the time. The next point I'd like to put up on why it's more beneficial is because it's much cheaper for you than getting a pet from the pet store. At the Pasadena Humane Shelter, the price of adopting any dog from them is only $125, while at the San Diego Humane Society Shelter, a dog from 7 months to 7 years is only $95, and any dog over 7 years is only $25. This adoption fee also covers fees such as spay and neutering, vaccines, free medical checkups, and a microchip ID to be given to the dog in case you lose him. Some shelters also provide obedience training, behavioral counseling, and medical services to dogs so that new owners can adjust to having dogs a lot quicker than if you purchase one from a pet store. I looked up a pet store's price for a dog, and I've seen that the Chicago Puppy Store's website lists their dogs as starting from $395 to up to over $1,000 for a dog. It is much cheaper in a pet shelter, along with all the benefits you get from a pet shelter. Finally, I would like to address that the ease of finding a dog at a pet shelter. Many shelters have websites at which you can find the dog you're exactly looking for, such as here. We have a Chihuahua where it gives you the type, the gender, the age, and it would be good for your family, okay, with other dogs, suitable with children, or if you need consultants for it. If you were to check on a pet store's website, though, many pet stores just list the dog's price and if you can purchase them, or if you return, how long you have to return the dog. Now that I've explained why buying a dog from a shelter is more beneficial, since the dog can adapt to your family better, the lower price and benefits you acquire for a dog, and how shelters ease your search for a dog that you want to add to your family. I hope that next time you decide on adopting a dog, you choose a shelter over purchasing one from a pet store.
So Tracy, we put you in here. What did you think?
It was good. I like that you clearly said what you were going to talk about. You didn't use your notes a lot. You kind of knew off the top of your head except like the facts. But I think maybe the topic or the way you presented it could have been better for like a persuasive speech rather than an informative speech.
All right. All right, well, Jesse, the personal introduction is not necessary, but I like the story about you're getting a dog 12 years ago and telling us that, and then getting the picture. I think that does a good job bringing up the topic and getting us involved. The goal is clearly stated. Now, I'd agree with Tracy. It does sound like it's more persuasive in nature than informative, but I do think that you tried to emphasize information on the individual points. I didn't really hear a lot of argument that suggested that pet store dogs or dogs from other places are inadequate or there's something problematic with them. You were mostly focusing on what is good about getting a dog from a shelter. I thought that was okay. Like I said, there's a pretty good preview what the supporting materials were. I thought from the very first point you started trying to document where your information came from. You were pretty consistent about citing information and its origins. That's fine. You do have that one study, though, that talks about all the reasons that the dogs are in the shelters, and it just feels like I'm getting a long list of items. It goes on, and the differences between them are like 3%, 5%, 4%, 4%, 3%, 5%, and it's like I've got a whole bunch of them, and there are a whole bunch of different reasons. You could probably have put all of that on a single slide, do a little bit of visual reference, make it a bar graph or something like that, and gotten through that a lot quicker without having to list every individual thing that goes on there, because it does seem like you get a little sidetracked on that point. The transition to the second point it's clear, but it's very abrupt, so it needs to be smoother. I know that you've changed topics, but it feels like it's sort of like you stopped on the one thing, turned, and now the next thing that we're going to, it's like something suddenly popped into your head. And I know that it's planned and you want to be there, so it ought to be a little bit smoother when you're doing those kinds of transitions. Like I said, you were very consistent about citing your data on all the sources. The visual material was integrated pretty well into the speech. Like I said, I think you could have saved a little bit of time and energy on that first point with a statistical visual on all the reasons that people have to give up their dogs. It felt a little bit like you were rushing, especially toward the end of the speech in the last section. Not most of the speech. I thought you were doing pretty good. But at the end, it felt like you were just anxious to get out of there. I thought there was an excellent summary of the speech at the end of the speech, too. And I think that, once again, helps remind us what it is that we were supposed to get out of the presentation. All right.